She handed me the divorce papers with a calm smile. 27 years together, and she felt the need to rediscover herself. I signed them without a second thought. No pleading, no drama. She probably expected me to crumble. But what happened next surprised her. She returned, anticipating an empty house and a broken man, only to find something that turned her face pale. Some doors, once shut, never open again. My name is Benjamin Mitchell. I'm 54 years old. Until 6 months ago, I believed I had my life figured out. I ran a thriving construction supply company in Asheville, North Carolina. My father had started it from scratch, and I expanded it across 3 counties. A solid reputation, steady income, and a house fully paid before I turned 50. A life many would call comfortable. My wife, Bridget, and I had been married for 27 years. We had one daughter, Kelsey, who had moved to Charlotte to start her own marketing agency. Smart girl, inherited her mother's beauty and, thankfully, my work ethic. For years, everything seemed stable. Not perfect, but stable. We followed our routines: Friday night dinners, Saturday morning trips to the farmer's market, Sunday pancakes, ordinary life. About 2 years ago, Bridget began to change. She joined a book club focused solely on women reclaiming their power. She started attending weekend retreats in the mountains, returning with new phrases like authentic self and energetic boundaries. She hired interior designer Dominic Reed to redo the living room, then the kitchen, eventually the entire first floor, claiming the house felt stagnant and needed a fresh perspective. I didn't think much of it. Let her have her hobbies, right? I was busy with the business, and she seemed content, or so I believed. Then came that Tuesday in March. I remember because it was raining, one of those cold, dreary showers that make you want to stay inside with coffee and a book. I arrived home around 6, boots muddy from a site inspection, and found Bridget at the kitchen table. A manila envelope rested beside the salt shaker. "We need to talk," she said, her tone calm, almost rehearsed. I set my keys down slowly. "All right." She slid the envelope toward me. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about myself, and what I want for the rest of my life." I opened the envelope. Divorce papers. The words blurred, but the meaning was clear: irreconcilable differences, division of assets. She had already signed at the bottom in the elegant cursive she always took pride in. "I need space," Bridget continued. "I need to find myself, to understand who I am beyond being your wife." I looked at her. 27 years, and it came down to this: a stack of papers and a speech straight out of one of her self-help books. "Okay," I said. She blinked. "Okay, that's it." I grabbed a pen from the counter and signed my name. No hesitation, no argument. If she wanted out, I wasn't going to beg her to stay. "You've already made up your mind, Bridget. I'm not going to fight you." Bridget left the next morning with 2 suitcases and her laptop. She didn't take much, just clothes and personal items. She mentioned staying at a friend's in Charleston while figuring things out. I watched from the kitchen window as she loaded her silver Lexus, the one I had bought for our 25th anniversary, and drove off without looking back. The house immediately felt different. Not empty, exactly, but lighter, as if windows I hadn't realized were closed had been opened. That first day, I wandered through the rooms, taking stock. 27 years of marriage left a lot behind. Her collection of decorative pillows, never to be used. Candles costing $40 each, scented with sage and intention, whatever that meant. A stack of self-help books on her nightstand, titles about awakening and transformation. I began packing things methodically, not out of anger, but practicality. She said she needed space, so that's what I gave her. Everything that was clearly hers went into labeled boxes, stacked neatly in the garage. Climate-controlled, organized, ready whenever she was. Next, I called a locksmith. Some might see that as cold, but I saw it differently. She chose to leave. That meant she no longer lived here. Simple as that. The house belonged to the Mitchell Family Trust anyway, something my father had set up in the 1990s, before I met Bridget. She had never paid attention to legal details, always saying paperwork was boring. Now, those boring details mattered. By the week's end, I moved into the guest house out back, built by my father after his first heart attack. He said he needed a quiet retreat from the world. Small but comfortable, with its own entrance, kitchen, bathroom, and separate utilities from the main house. Most people didn't even know the guest house existed, hidden behind the hedges as if it were a secret. I didn't mention the move to Bridget, didn't see the reason. On the third day, she sent a text asking if I was managing everything all right. I replied that I was fine. She sent back a thumbs-up emoji and nothing more. The main house remained empty for exactly 5 days. Then I received a message from someone I hadn't heard from in months. Brooke Palmer, Bridget's younger half-sister. We had always gotten along well at family gatherings, though Bridget kept her at a distance. She often said Brooke was sweet but scatterbrained, probably destined to live in a van somewhere. Brooke's text was simple. Hey, Ben. Heard about the split. Are you doing okay? I stared at my phone for a moment before replying. Yeah, I'm good. Better than expected, actually. She responded quickly. Want to grab coffee sometime? No pressure, just checking in. We met 2 days later at a downtown cafe, serving coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Brooke arrived in jeans and a flannel shirt, her dark hair tied back in a simple ponytail. She looked tired but steady, someone who carried weight without complaint. You look different, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. Different how? I asked. Calmer, she replied. Like you've been holding your breath for years and finally exhaled. I thought about it. Yeah, that felt about right. After that first coffee, Brooke and I started talking more often. Nothing romantic, just two people who had both endured Bridget's dismissive ways. Brooke shared stories I'd never heard about growing up in Bridget's shadow, constantly compared and found lacking. Their mother had remarried when Brooke was 8, and Bridget had never let her forget she was the second family. About 2 weeks after Bridget left, Brooke arrived at the house unannounced, driving a beat-up Honda packed with cleaning supplies and painting tools. What's all this? I asked as she pulled into the driveway. You said the main house needs work before you can sell or rent it. Brooke replied, holding up a bucket of paint rollers. I figured I'd help. I've got the week off from the clinic anyway. Brooke worked as a physical therapy assistant, a job Bridget had always belittled as just stretching people. But watching her that day, I saw someone who knew how to work. No complaints, no constant instructions, just sleeves rolled up and getting things done. We started in the living room, taking down Bridget's expensive curtains that blocked most of the natural light. Underneath, the windows were filthy, years of grime hidden behind curtains that had been chosen for appearances rather than function. She always cared more about looks than reality, Brooke said, scrubbing the glass. I nodded, taking down another curtain rod. I was beginning to see that. We worked through the afternoon, making more progress than I could have in 2 weeks alone. Brooke had a way of lightening the work, cracking jokes about Bridget's taste in furniture, suggesting we burn the decorative pillows for warmth. By evening, the living room was cleared and painted a fresh, neutral color. The space felt bigger, brighter, finally able to breathe. You should stay, I said as we cleaned up. The spare room's empty, and it's getting late. Saves you a drive back to Columbia. Brooke hesitated. You sure? I don't want to impose. You just spent 8 hours helping me reclaim my house. That's not imposing, I replied. That's friendship. She smiled. All right, but I'm making breakfast tomorrow, and we're tackling that disaster of a kitchen. Over the following days, Brooke kept coming back. She arrived in the morning with coffee and plans for which room we'd renovate next. The kitchen, the hallway, the main bedroom. Each space was stripped of Bridget's influence and rebuilt into something functional and genuine. People around town began to notice. The mailman asked if I had family visiting. A neighbor waved, commenting on how nice the house looked. I simply said I was making a few changes. 3 weeks in, Brooke mentioned her lease was ending, and she hadn't found anything affordable in Columbia. Stay here, I said. Not a question, just the obvious solution. Empty guest rooms and someone who had already invested time into the house. Brooke looked at me, cautious. Ben, are you sure? What about Bridget? She left. This isn't her house anymore. It never really was. Brooke moved in the following weekend, bringing just 2 suitcases and a box of books. No drama, no grand declarations, just quietly taking over a space that needed care. Having Brooke in the house changed everything, not dramatically, but through small, steady improvements. She woke up early, brewed real coffee instead of the fancy espresso Bridget insisted on. She cooked proper meals rather than photographing salads. She laughed at my jokes, never treating conversations like performances. We settled into an easy routine, mornings with coffee on the back porch, planning the day's work. Brooke headed to the clinic, I to the warehouse. Evenings were spent together on the house, removing years of Bridget's decor and replacing it with simpler, honest choices. The living room received new furniture, comfortable pieces you could actually sit on. The kitchen lost its showy copper details and gained practical storage solutions. The main bedroom, which I hadn't yet moved back into, was completely repainted and refurnished. It was no longer Bridget's personal shrine, it was simply a room. Brooke had her own life and her own space, but having someone else around felt comforting, someone who didn't expect me to be anything other than myself. In the evenings, she worked on her sketches while I read, and we shared the same space without it feeling tense or complicated. One evening, while Brooke and I were painting the hallway, my daughter Kelsey called. "Dad, I heard Aunt Brooke's staying with you," she said, curiosity in her voice, no judgment. "Yeah, she's helping fix up the house," I replied. "It needed the work." "How are you doing?" "Really?" Kelsey asked. "Better than I expected," I admitted. "Your mom made her choice, and I'm making mine. No point dwelling on the past." "Good," Kelsey said firmly. "You deserve better than someone who treats you like an accessory. I love Mom, but she's been selfish for years. I'm glad you're not waiting for her to come back." After we hung up, Brooke glanced over as she edged the trim. "Kelsey okay with me being here?" she asked. "More than okay," I said. "She's glad I'm not alone." Brooke nodded and returned to her work. "For what it's worth, Ben, I'm glad too. This place is starting to feel like a home, not a museum." She was right. The house was changing, and so was I. The weight I'd carried for years, trying to please Bridget, trying to be enough, had lifted. I wasn't trying to make anyone happy anymore. I was just living, and it felt good. By the end of the month, Brooke had completely settled in. Her art supplies claimed one corner of the guest room. Her running shoes were by the back door. Her laughter filled spaces that had been silent for too long. The house wasn't empty anymore. It was alive. Life had begun to feel normal when I discovered the first irregularity. While reviewing old bank statements for the divorce attorney, I noticed a pattern. Regular transfers from our joint account to one I didn't recognize. $500 here, $1,000 there, sometimes more. Over the past 18 months, nearly $40,000 had vanished. I called the bank. The account belonged to someone named Dominic Reed, Bridget's interior designer. I sat at my desk in the guest house, staring at the statements spread before me. $40,000. Money I had earned. Money we had saved together, funneled to another man while she smiled across the breakfast table, talking about finding herself. I contacted my attorney, Lawrence Griffith, a friend since high school. He whistled low when I explained what I found. "Ben, this changes things," he said. "We can use this in the settlement, dissipation of marital assets. She can't just drain accounts and walk away." "I don't want to fight," I said. "I just want what's mine protected." "Then we protect it," Lawrence confirmed. "I'll file the paperwork today. She'll have to account for every dollar." That evening, I showed Brooke the statements. She studied them closely, jaw tightening. "I'm not surprised," she said. Finally, Bridget always had someone on the side, someone to make her feel special, say what she wanted to hear. "You knew?" I asked. "I suspected," Brooke admitted. "But it wasn't my place to say anything. You two were married, and I was the ignored little sister. Who would have believed me?" She had a point. I wouldn't have believed her. I'd been too focused on trying to keep Bridget happy, blind to what was right in front of me. Brooke hesitated. "There's more. I ran into Kelsey last week. She told me she'd known about Mom's affair for over a year. She saw them together in a Charlotte restaurant and confronted Bridget. 'Your wife,' Bridget said, 'just keep quiet. It's complicated. You wouldn't understand.' The betrayal cut deeper than I expected, not just Bridget's affair, but Kelsey keeping it from me. My own daughter protecting her mother's lies. She felt terrible about it," Brooke added quickly. "Didn't know how to tell you without destroying everything. She was trying to protect you. I understood that, though it didn't make it hurt any less." The next day, I called Kelsey. She picked up on the second ring, her voice immediately defensive. "Dad, I'm sorry. I should have told you," she said before I could speak. "Yeah, you should have," I replied. "But I get why you didn't. You were caught in the middle. I hated keeping it from you." Kelsey continued, her voice trembling slightly. "But Mom said if I told you, it would ruin everything. She promised to end it. Said it was just a phase." "It wasn't a phase, Kelsey," I said quietly. "It was a choice. One she made over and over." We spoke for an hour. Kelsey cried, apologized, and explained how torn she had felt. I didn't blame her. She had been put in an impossible position by her mother and did what she thought was right. That's all any of us can do. After hanging up, Brooke handed me a cup of coffee and sat across from me at the kitchen table. "You okay?" she asked. "I will be," I replied. "Just processing." "For what it's worth," Brooke said carefully, "you're handling this better than most men would. You're not exploding or falling apart. That takes strength." I wasn't sure about strength. I just knew that staying angry wouldn't change anything. Bridget had made her choices, stolen money, lied to our daughter, and walked away as if nothing mattered. All I could control was my response, and I chose not to let it destroy me. On a Saturday morning, Bridget showed up unannounced. I was in the workshop behind the guest house building a shelf for Brooke's art supplies when I heard her car. I set down my drill and walked around front, dusting sawdust from my hands. She stepped out of her Lexus, wearing expensive yoga clothes and oversized sunglasses. She looked thinner, more angular, like she had been surviving on green juice and praise. "Ben, we need to talk," Bridget said, removing her sunglasses. "About what?" I asked, remaining where I was. "About the house, our things, moving forward properly," she explained, her tone rehearsed. "Everything's been handled," I said. "Your things are boxed in the garage. Your attorney has all the documents. Nothing more to discuss." She bristled. "I want to see the house. Make sure you haven't damaged anything." "The house is fine," I replied evenly. "Better than fine, actually." Before she could answer, the front door opened. Brooke stepped out, wearing paint-stained jeans and one of my old work shirts, her hair tied back with a bandana. She held a paintbrush, looking completely at home. Bridget froze. Her expression shifted rapidly. Confusion, recognition, disbelief, then panic. "What is she doing here?" Bridget demanded, raising her voice. "Brooke lives here now," I said simply. "She's been helping fix up the house." "Lives here," Bridget repeated, voice rising. "She's living in my house." "It's not your house, Bridget," I corrected. "It never was. The house belongs to the Mitchell Family Trust. Always has." Bridget's panic turned into anger. "You moved my sister into my home the second I left. That's disgusting, Ben. Manipulative and disgusting." "Half-sister," Brooke corrected calmly, leaning against the doorframe. "And you, Bridget," you laughed. "Dropped divorce papers and left to find yourself. Remember? Ben didn't chase you. He just stopped waiting." Bridget's face flushed. "You always wanted what I had. Even as kids, you were jealous. Always trying to take my place." "I don't want your place," Brooke replied steadily. "I'm just helping someone who deserves better than what you gave him." Bridget turned to me, desperation on her face. "Ben, please, we can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can fix this." "Just tell her to leave," I thought. I looked at her carefully. This was the woman I'd spent 27 years with, who drained our accounts to fund an affair, lied to our daughter, and walked away without a backward glance. Now she panicked because someone else had filled the space she abandoned. "No," I said. "You made your choice. You wanted space, and I gave it. All of it. You'll regret this." Bridget hissed, backing toward her car. "Both of you will regret this." "I don't think so," I replied. "But you might want to talk to your attorney about those bank transfers. We found them all." Her face went pale. She opened her mouth, closed it, then got in her car without another word. The tires spun gravel as she reversed out of the driveway and disappeared down the street. Brooke walked over and stood beside me, both of us watching the dust settle. "That went well," Brooke said dryly. I laughed despite myself. "Yeah, real smooth." "She's going to make trouble," Brooke observed. "Probably," I agreed. "But we have the truth on our side. That counts." Within 48 hours of her visit, Bridget's attorney filed motions. She wanted the house, half the business assets, and alimony, despite leaving first. Her lawyer painted me as vindictive for moving Brooke in so quickly. Lawrence called that Tuesday morning, sounding almost amused. "Ben, she's claiming you violated the sanctity of the marriage by moving Brooke in immediately after she left." "Adultery," I repeated. "She's the one who drained $40,000 to fund an affair with her designer." "Exactly," Lawrence agreed. "Which is why this won't work. We have bank records, timestamps, and a witness statement from the designer's ex-wife confirming the affair began 2 years ago. Bridget doesn't have a leg to stand on." The court date arrived 3 weeks later. I wore a suit, stayed quiet, and let Lawrence do all the talking. Bridget appeared in all black, playing the victim. Her attorney claimed I had emotionally abandoned her, planned to replace her with Brooke from the start, and that the house should be hers as compensation for years of emotional neglect. Then Lawrence presented the evidence. Bank statements showing systematic transfers to Dominic Reed, text messages from Kelsey proving Bridget admitted to the affair, and neighbor testimony confirming Dominic's car in our driveway on days I was at work. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Patricia Holloway, reviewed everything carefully, then looked over her glasses at Bridget. "Mrs. Mitchell, you depleted marital assets to fund an extramarital affair, then abandoned the marriage, claiming you needed space," Judge Holloway said flatly. "And now you demand the family home and support from the man you betrayed. Is that accurate?" Bridget's attorney started to speak, but the judge raised her hand. "The home belongs to a family trust established before your marriage," Judge Holloway continued. "You have no legal claim. Furthermore, the dissipation of assets will be accounted for in the final settlement. You will be responsible for repaying half of what you transferred, roughly $20,000. Bridget's face went pale. Her attorney whispered urgently, but she sat frozen. "As for alimony," the judge added, "given that you voluntarily left the marriage and depleted marital assets, I see no basis for support. Divorce granted. Division of remaining assets to be calculated minus what Mrs. Mitchell must repay. This case is closed." Walking out of the courthouse felt like stepping into sunlight after years in a cave. Brooke was waiting outside, having taken the day off. "How'd it go?" she asked. "We won," I said simply. 2 weeks after the court ruling, Brooke began feeling unwell. At first, we thought it was stress from the legal battle or a stomach bug. When it didn't improve after a week, I insisted she see a doctor. She returned from the appointment stunned. "Ben, I'm pregnant," Brooke said, sitting heavily at the kitchen table. I stared. "Pregnant? How far along?" "About 6 weeks," she confirmed, hands trembling slightly. I hadn't even considered it possible. We'd been careful mostly, and I'd never imagined this happening. Over the past months, we'd grown close, finding comfort in each other after everything with Bridget. It hadn't been planned, just 2 people healing together discovering something unexpected. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "I want to keep it," Brooke said immediately. "But I understand if it's too much, too soon. I can move out, handle this alone." "No," I said firmly. "You're not handling this alone. If we're doing this, we do it together." Brooke's eyes filled with tears. "Ben, are you sure? This is going to complicate everything." "Everything's already complicated," I replied. "This just makes it more interesting." We told Kelsey first. She came over that weekend, and we sat her down in the living room. I expected shock or disapproval. Instead, she laughed. "Of course you're pregnant, Aunt Brooke," Kelsey said, shaking her head. "Mom's going to lose it." "That's not why we're doing this," I said quickly. "I know, Dad," Kelsey replied, still grinning. "But it's going to drive her absolutely crazy. And honestly, she deserves it. You two deserve to be happy. If this makes you happy, I'm happy for you." News spread fast in a small town. Within days, everyone knew. Reactions were mixed. Some thought it was too soon, too messy. Others assumed we were adults making our own choices. I didn't care what anyone thought. Bridget heard within the week. She called from an unknown number, screaming so loudly I had to hold the phone away. "You got her pregnant? My sister? You're disgusting, Ben. You planned this." "I didn't plan anything, Bridget," I replied calmly. "Life just happened." "This is revenge," she insisted. "No," I said. "Revenge would require me to care about hurting you. This is just me moving forward." She hung up. I blocked the number. 3 months into Brooke's pregnancy, a man I'd never met appeared at the house. He was in his early 60s. Weathered face, tense energy. He introduced himself as Raymond Palmer, Brooke's biological father. "I heard my daughter's living here," Raymond said, standing awkwardly on the porch. "Haven't seen her in 15 years. Thought maybe it was time to reconnect." Brooke appeared at the door, her face pale. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice tight. "Brooke, honey, I know I haven't been around," Raymond started, tone overly friendly. "But family matters. I heard you're expecting. I want to be part of that. Make things right." "You want money," Brooke said flatly. "That's what this is about." His expression shifted. "It's not. I'm in a tough spot. Just need a little help getting back on my feet. 10,000 would set me straight." "No," Brooke replied simply. "I'm your father, Raymond insisted, voice rising. You owe me. I stepped forward, positioning myself between them. She doesn't owe you anything. You need to leave. Raymond's eyes narrowed. And who are you? The new protector, I said. You abandoned her when she was 17, and now you think you can take advantage. I think you left her when she needed you. I continued calmly. And now you show up seeking a handout. That's not family. That's opportunism. Raymond stepped closer, attempting intimidation. I didn't move. One chance to leave on your own, I said quietly. After that, I call the sheriff. Your choice. Something in my tone made him reconsider. He muttered about family and regret, then got in his truck and drove off. Brooke was shaking. I guided her inside and had her sit. He's been like this my whole life, she said, voice breaking. Appears when he needs something, disappears when I do. You're done with it, I said firmly. He won't get near you or our child. I'll make sure of it. 2 days later, Raymond tried again at Brooke's work. Security removed him, and I filed a restraining order that afternoon. The judge granted it immediately, considering Brooke's history with him. Meanwhile, Bridget stirred rumors through mutual friends, claiming I'd stolen her sister and ruined her life. Most ignored her, but she reached Kelsey's grandmother, my ex-mother-in-law, who demanded answers. You got Brooke pregnant to hurt my daughter, she accused. No, Brooke and I are in a relationship, and life happened, I replied. Bridget made her choices. I'm making mine. She hung up. 8 months after Bridget left, Brooke gave birth to a healthy baby boy. We named him David after my father. Holding him in the hospital, watching Brooke exhausted but smiling, I realized something profound. This wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was better than I could have imagined. Kelsey arrived hours later, tears streaming as she held her baby brother. He's perfect, Dad, she said. You deserve this. You deserve to be happy. Bridget learned of the birth through her mother and sent one text. Hope you're happy with your replacement family. I deleted it without replying. She was part of my past, not my future. The divorce settlement finalized 2 weeks later. Bridget received half our liquid assets minus the $20,000 she owed, keeping her car and personal items. I kept the house, the business, and my peace of mind. The trust my father established protected what mattered. Dominic Reed, her lover, moved on to another wealthy client. Bridget lived in a small Charleston apartment, posting quotes about resilience. I didn't follow her, but Kelsey kept me updated. Mom's telling people she left abuse, she said. She claims I controlled her financially and emotionally. Let her tell her story, I said, watching David sleep. The truth's in the court records. Brooke and I settled into a routine. She returned to part-time work after maternity leave, and I adjusted my schedule to help with David. The house, once a showcase for Bridget's ego, became a true home filled with baby toys, laughter, and comfortable chaos. 6 months after David's birth, Raymond tried contacting Brooke again, asking for money and visitation. Her attorney sent a copy of the restraining order. We never heard from him again. 15 months after Bridget left with divorce papers, I sat on the back porch with Brooke, watching David take his first wobbly steps across the grass. Kelsey recorded, cheering him on. You know what's funny? Brooke said, leaning on my shoulder. Bridget spent years trying to find herself, and she still doesn't know. But you knew all along. You just needed her gone to remember. She was right. With Bridget, I'd constantly tried to be enough, constantly adjusted to her demands. That wasn't me. Sitting here with people who valued me for who I truly am, this was living. David stumbled, fell, laughed, and got back up, determined to keep trying. I smiled, watching him. Starting over wasn't about erasing the past. It was about building something better from what remained. Looking at my son, my daughter, and Brooke beside me, I knew we'd build something solid, real, and worth keeping.